Local 237 members make up the NYCHA workforce, and many of them live in public housing developments. Therefore, we are especially focused on safety issues for all those who live and work in NYCHA. Just recently, we had one of our caretakers on a Sunday morning, and it was caught on camera. He was choked till he was rendered unconscious,
Yes.
and $10 was taken out of his pocket.
My goodness.
The stories that we hear every day about NYCHA, the gun violence in there. What are your thoughts?
So I hope that your member is okay. I hope he's recovering, and I pray for him. As a former member of the city council, I represented Ingersoll, Whitman, Farragut, Atlantic Terminal, and Lafayette Gardens was across the street from my district. A lot of people used to think I represented Lafayette Gardens, but I always include LG. And I was the first city council member in this city to put cameras in public housing in downtown Brooklyn. Was the city. I also worked with Police Commissioner Bratton and Police Commissioner Kelly on instituting a ShotSpotter, which detects gun activity.
Yes.
And so we piloted that program with NYPD, and now it's being implemented all over the city. There have been problems with broken locks in NYCHA, and I do know that there's a lot of mismanagement in public housing in NYCHA. And what we need to do is get to the bottom of it. What safety should be the number one issue within public housing, not only for your workers but also for the residents of public housing. Who I know the overwhelming majority of the residents of public housing are hardworking, God-fearing individuals, and so we must do all that we can do to address NYCHA. But I think the most important issue that we should focus on, and that is the PSAs. PSAs are the police departments that cover public housing.
Public service units.
Yes, but
agents. Yeah.
But the territory is so large. So, for instance, PSA 1 goes from Red Hook all the way to Coney Island.
That's impossible to cover.
Yeah, exactly, and that's my point. PSAs need to be smaller. There's only a few PSAs. If I'm not mistaken, there's only like 8 PSAs in the entire city. We need to examine PSAs. We need to fund PSAs, and they need more personnel. I think the worst thing that this city did was break up police, transit, and housing, and consolidated it. It had a major impact on the safety of not only your workers but the residents of New York City. They're not getting their protection that they deserve as tax-paying citizens of this city.
You're absolutely right. I remember when that happened too. That was in 1995. I remember when it happened. Now, there was an incident that has been forgotten where the police officer had killed Mr. Gurley on a stairwell.
Yes. Because
he opened the door with his firearm, which a hair trigger on a 9mm, and that's when it went off.
Yeah.
But that stairway was dark.
It was dark. There were no lights in it, and as we speak, I'm sure that there are
no lights there.
There's no lights there,
and the focus is off of that, and no one's talking about lights in
no
NYCHA.
Maintenance. No, you're absolutely right. All throughout NYCHA, we still have maintenance problems. Partly it's because we don't get our fair share from Washington. We don't get any resources from the state. The city has stepped up to some extent, but obviously we need to do more. And because Congress is in the hands of Republicans, urban centers all throughout this country are suffering as a result of cutbacks in public funding. And NYCHA is a prime example. And so we have to do all that we can do to continue to support NYCHA and think of innovative ways to finance public housing going forward.
But I could tell you, I believe NYCHA is going to end up with a surplus this year.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I could tell you, we, the union, along with our members, can devise a plan that we could fix NYCHA. Because our members know how to do more with less. And they know where they're not working. They know where they're not being used efficiently. If we could just get somebody to listen.
There's a lot of waste in NYCHA. There's no question about it. And there's a lot of contracts that are being let that are too costly and that could be insourced as opposed to outsourced.
Yes.
And be insourced to your members. And I think that if we were to examine NYCHA piece by piece and break it apart, we would uncover a lot of savings for your members and for the residents of public housing. I believe that in my heart of hearts. There was one contract that was referred to my office, and we are looking at it. We are also considering the possibility of some litigation against NYCHA. In fact, we will be announcing it probably tomorrow regarding Douglas houses, where the residents of Douglas houses were denied heat.
Oh, that story that appeared while we're taping, it appeared in today's Daily News.
And it announced the fact that we are suing NYCHA on behalf of the residents of Douglas houses.
Yeah, that's unfortunate when you see that they're denied heat. And NYCHA, right now, they're discussing plans because they want to have a shift come in at 6 a.m. They're not hiring new people. They just want to bring people in at 6 a.m. when it's dark, people trying to go to work, to clean the hallways.
I do know that you need more members. I hear from your maintenance members, and they tell me about all that they have to do. I hear from tenants about the conditions, and clearly the hardworking men of your union need more support. And this administration and the federal government and the state really needs to step up to the plate. I think all levels of government need to recognize that NYCHA truly represents a truly affordable housing, and we need to do all that we can do to maintain it and keep your workers, your members safe, as well as the hardworking residents who I love dearly and who have been the backbone of my support.
Safety in and around the schools is also a key issue for our union. Our 5,000 school safety agents and members on the front line every day, and now there are discussions of taking out metal detectors from some schools, doing away with certain crimes as I would say bullying, taunting, graffiti, vandalism, sort of this blank check for kids to go and misbehave. I know in the city of Syracuse, they're in turmoil up there because they adopted this program, and the teachers up there are protesting, and it's just not working up there. And you know, for children, I mean, I'm not going to tell my son he can get away with certain things.
Right.
He may be able to get away with it, but I'm not going to give him the impression that he can get away with it, because if he gets away with one little thing, tomorrow it's going to be something bigger.
Right. So I do know, listen, I am concerned about the presence of too many police in our public schools. I don't want to criminalize an entire generation of individuals in our public school system, primarily young men of color. I'm very much concerned about that. As someone who's an attorney who represents countless number of children in the criminal justice system, I think in the past, when individuals were arrested for, relatively minor offenses, I do know that when I went to school, those offenses were resolved in a mediation.
And that's where it should be resolved.
And that's where it should be resolved. But I do know that a number of schools are crying out for school safety agents. In fact, there was a recent bill that was passed by the City Council where they're providing school safety agents who are not your members to private institutions. And I know a number of civil libertarians have raised issue with respect to church and state, the separation of church and state. Let me just say this. School safety agents are needed in our schools, one, to mediate, and two, one, to keep the peace in our schools. And so I know that a number of your members have been concerned about metal detectors, and metal detectors are needed at certain schools. There's no question about it. I've gone to some schools that have been unfortunately unruly, and I think, particularly given the fact that we are housing like 5 schools in one building, and there's tensions between one school to the next, we've got to recognize that there is in some schools the presence of some gangs. I think, again, it will go a long way in protecting not only your members, but the students who are going to school, obviously, because they recognize that education is the key to success.
We have one more minute. Just briefly talk about your support of the $15 minimum, $15 an hour minimum wage.
Listen, I am an unabashed fan and proponent of the union movement. We know that the labor movement is responsible for the middle class in this country, and particularly the middle class, the African-American middle class. And so the labor movement has been behind an effort to raise the minimum wage to $15 because wages have been stagnated in this country. And so we've got to move the middle class. We've got to grow the middle class. We've got to support the labor movement because the labor movement is under attack all across this country. They've destroyed it. And as a result of that, the middle class has shrunk and wages have been stagnated. And we have lost a lot of jobs, unfortunately, to countries where they are violating the rights of individuals and do not pay them a minimum wage or a wage that is comparable with a certain standard of living. So we need to support the union movement. We need to raise wages. We need to bring back innovative and creative industries to this country. And we need to stand unabashedly in support of the union movement.
And thank you very much. That's all the time we have for this segment of Reaching Out. I'm Gregory Floyd, President, Local 237 Teamsters. Very special guest was Public Advocate Letitia James. Thank you for coming on Reaching Out.
Thank you. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all of your listeners. Thank you and God bless you.